Good morning, everyone. It is an absolute privilege to be able to be with you this morning. My name is Stephen Whyte. My wife, let's see if we'll get the slides might up here. My wife, Roxanne, and I have 5 children. Our friends and neighbors joke that we get to live in the White House every day. We love being a part of this great state and this great community. Professionally, I've had the privilege of being a professor for 13 years at Utah Valley University. Today, my current responsibilities are being the Executive Vice President of Rocky Mountain University of Health Professions in Provo. We offer master's and doctorate degrees in 19 health-related fields. Well, as a member of the House of Representatives, representing the great cities of Mapleton, Spanish Fork, and Springville, and also serving as the co-chair of the Commission on Housing Affordability for this last year, I've had the privilege of being able to look into the health of our state's housing situation. And as you know right now, it is in need of some intensive care. I would like to thank Governor Cox this morning for his remarks about housing and also his leadership in helping drive solutions to be able to address these issues. I would also like to personally thank all of you for your involvement in the issues of housing affordability. Thank you for serving as mayors, as members of the city council, as administrative staff to all of our cities. You carry such a great weight on your shoulders, and I appreciate your service and your dedication and the work that you do that makes Utah such a great place for all of us to be able to live and to be able to raise families and to work and to be able to play as well. For the next 10 minutes, I've been asked to share with you some things that I've observed and learned about the housing problems, principles, and policies. We've all seen the housing headlines throughout the state, some of which feel very daunting, challenging, and also overwhelming. So let's dig into the data behind these headlines. There are so many data points that could be shared, so in the short amount of time we have together for a couple of minutes, I'm going to share with you 6 data points that have been prepared by the Kim C. Gardner Public Policy Institute. I sure appreciate their involvement and their research helping the entire state in this area. Number 1, the housing shortage has improved in recent years. That's the good news. In 2017, the state needed approximately 56,000 new homes. Today, the state needs approximately 28,000 homes. So a gap of about 27,000 units have been filled. But the state is still needing approximately 28,000 more units to keep up with current housing numbers. Looking ahead into the next 2 years, projections show that the housing shortage will become worse. Number 2, construction costs are a significant reason why housing prices have increased. The national average is a 23% increase from last year to this year in materials and labor. Number 3, Utah homes are expensive enough that about 77% of Utahns are priced out of the housing market in the state at the current state's median sales price at today's current interest rates. In comparison to California, for example, relatively speaking, California is slightly more affordable to Californians than Utah is for Utahns. Number 4, in 2021 and 2022, there were approximately 70,000 units built throughout the state. The state's population's projections show that there will need to be an additional about 178,000 more units built by 2030 to meet future housing demands. Number 5, let's see. If I can go back one slide, please, if I can help, perfect. Diving back into the population projections for the state shows how many units will need to be built by 2030 in each county throughout the state. For example, in Utah County alone, we'll need to build an additional about 51,000 units by 2030. And our last data point, number 6. Our last data slide shows that the types of homes available and the types of homes that are needed in Utah to meet the population demands. These types of units that are typically sometimes referred to as that missing middle that we'll hear about a little bit later today. This graph is fascinating because it shows the typical cost of a home depending upon the size of the acre. The missing middle housing options especially align with people who are wanting to buy their very first home. Now, if I may oversimplify the housing problems in the state, I would propose to you that we have two major problems. Number one, as the governor referenced, the demand for homes exceeds our supply. We essentially have a supply versus demand problem. And number two, we have a not in my backyard mentality. I have been told, quote, yes, we need more houses, but I don't want those kind of houses in my neighborhood, end of quote. I've also, unfortunately, have been told, quote, I don't want those kind of people in my community, end of quote. Ironically, those kind of people are our children and our grandchildren. Well, so how do we work to be able to solve these problems? To create good policies to help people, we need to begin with some good principles. As I've had the opportunity to meet with people throughout the state and with city leaders throughout the state as well, here are the principles that you are sharing with me. Home ownership strengthens families and communities. Every person should have a place to live regardless of their phase in life. Property rights must be protected. Capitalism drives innovation and prosperity. Every entity, organization, and individual must follow the rule of law. Make data-informed decisions. And the principles of accountability, consistency, and predictability and fairness are also needed. So using these good principles will help all of us work with the different populations involved in housing affordability. We have the population of renters who are facing increasing rates who are unable to get out of renting because they can't afford to buy. We have first-time home buyers who can't afford to buy a home, and this population is only going to increase in the long term. We have our retirees whose increasing property values are resulting in higher property taxes and are forcing many of our fixed income retirees out of their homes. And as retirees pass away, homes will come on the market in more established, expensive areas, exacerbating the divide of housing affordability. We also have low and moderate income families who can't afford to buy a home. And we have our homeless who are unable to find permanent supportive housing. So from a policy perspective, what should citizens, cities, county, and the state do to help these people? As policies are considered, strategic questions include, will the proposed policy increase the supply of homes? Will the proposed policy result in more housing that is actually affordable to the buyer? Will the proposed policy actually allow more affordable types of housing to be built for our younger generation? And will the proposed policy result in good planning? Well, these types of questions are the types of questions that the Commission on Housing Affordability is wrestling with right now. The Commission on Housing Affordability was established to bring people and organizations together to identify and research problems, to discuss and debate, and to propose policy and budget recommendations. On the screen is a list of the individuals and organizations that are currently serving on the Commission. The Commission on Housing Affordability is part of the Governor's Unified Economic Opportunity Commission. This year, the Commission on Housing Affordability has 3 subgroups. We have the data working group that is helping everyone make data-driven decisions. We have a policy working group to identify policies that can be proposed in the next legislative session. And we have a funding working group to identify and prepare budget requests for the next legislative session. I am grateful and very appreciative that the League is actively involved in the Commission and in each one of these subgroups. Cameron Dill, Carson Eilers, Mayor Jeff Silvestrini, Mayor Michelle Kafusi, Mayor Don Ramsey, Tom McDonald, and many, many, many more talented people in the League have been working with the CHA on a weekly basis throughout the summer, and I greatly appreciate your involvement and leadership. We are about 4 months, about 4.5 months away from the 2024 legislative session. Here's where things are at right now. Budget proposals are anticipated for requests in deeply affordable housing grants, attainable housing funds, homeless services funding, the Olene Walker ongoing gap financing, and the Housing Preservation Fund. From a policy perspective, there are many ideas that are being presented, discussed, debated, and analyzed right now. Over the last 6 years, many low-hanging fruit opportunities have been addressed through the collaborative work of cities, counties, and the state. What is left before us today are the really big, really hard, and really challenging questions and issues. Here are just a few examples of policy ideas that are currently being discussed, and this is just a sampling of a few. Small lot reform, meaning reducing the minimum lot size to build smaller, affordable starter homes. Increasing low-income tax credits. Fund upfront infrastructure to assist cities in offsetting expenses so more homes can be built. Looking at housing density around state investment areas such as transportation corridors. Explore modular housing options and the related housing codes. Create a savings account similar to the education savings account where people can start putting money in, accrue interest for their first-time home purchase. Increase trade and vocational training to tackle labor shortages in the home building construction industry. Now, none of these policy ideas have been finalized. Some could move forward in the next legislative session. Some may take more time to research and analyze, so they won't be ready for the next session. And some won't move forward because they have no support. It is my personal feeling that as we proactively continue to look for solutions, cities also should be given time to implement policies that have previously been passed. Thank you. Well, by November, we should have a better picture and idea of what proposals will move forward in the next legislative session. So to conclude, to address these statewide issues, and from my perspective, here's what citizens, counties, cities, and states must do, including all of us in this room. The private sector and government must work together. The entire state needs to work together to creatively solve these problems. We need everyone to come to the table with their ideas and to be able to listen to each other. We're going to have to do some things differently that probably not everyone in the state will be happy about. We also need to create an understanding that Utah's growth equals prosperity, and also to change our mindset that not in my backyard perspectives are detrimental to our children and our grandchildren. I'm confident that we will be able to jointly solve the housing affordability issues. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you this morning, and thank you for your involvement as we collaboratively work together. Thank you.